Hey group, it's Pitt, and I'm back. Today we're going to be dealing with the COP27 summit, but I've been under and enforced away from making videos because my voice is undergoing some issues, and I lost my entire upper range now. But I got most of my bottom back, just not my volume. So I'm getting my natural voice back slowly but surely. Now we're going to dive into the COP27. I had to do this. I'm going to try not to make any commentary beyond what is acceptable. But, yeah, let's dig in.
Historic and something hopeful. With your help, we closed the Paris Rulebook. We made unprecedented progress on coal and on fossil fuel subsidies. We
closed the rule book
to rapidly scale up finance and to double adaptation finance by 2025. We reiterated the urgency of action and support for loss and damage and established serious work on funding arrangements. And we hope that that has paved the way for a formal agenda item and tangible progress here in Egypt.
Tangible progress. Seems interesting. Might seem like they want to put some things into action maybe.
And every party, and I repeat this, every party agreed to revisit and strengthen their 2030 emission reduction targets.
Revisit and strengthen, because they're not already unreachable. We need to make sure they are.
To align with Paris. So I want to thank the 29 countries which have already updated their NDCs since Glasgow.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that. It's very much appreciated.
From Australia to Micronesia, India to Vanuatu, Norway to Gabon. And we also made progress.
Interesting series of names there.
From Australia to Micronesia.
Seems like I remember them being in the news.
India to Vanuatu.
Yeah.
Norway to Gabon.
Yeah. Very interesting. The news articles that would have been coming out from them for the last couple of years. Very interesting.
And we also made progress outside the negotiating rooms with commitments from business, from finance, from philanthropy.
Nice. I'm glad to see people taking action. Business, finance, and philanthropy. I'm going to guess Microsoft. I'm going to guess Blackstone. And I'm going to guess, what he said? Hold on.
Outside the negotiating rooms, with commitments from business, from finance, from philanthropy.
Philanthropy, okay, yeah, that foundation.
Friends.
They're really helpful. I'm very much appreciative of just how helpful that they are. It makes me feel so much better to know that they are on watch to make sure that we don't step out of line. I love that.
Thanks to the work that we did together, we achieved our objective. The goal at the heart of the Paris Agreement, we kept 1.5 degrees alive.
Just wait, buddy. Just wait. I've got some long-form content coming out this week. It's going to talk about an issue that I can't really talk about in the same context here.
Now,
that's been part of why I've been gone too. Been doing some research to make sure I've got some things lined up.
None of us could have anticipated the year that followed. We have been buffeted by global headwinds that have tested our ability to make progress. Putin's brutal and illegal war in Ukraine has precipitated multiple global crises.
It's too bad y'all aren't all a part of the same club. Because, if y'all were part of a club that had initials like YGL, then maybe it would seem more cooperative. Y'all would seem to be working together better. Like if you played in the same club. I bet that you could make things happen in a way that hasn't been seen before. I bet you could do that.
Energy and food insecurity, inflationary pressures, and spiraling debt.
Yeah, Those are all there. He absolutely told the truth. Listen Listen to this list.
Energy and food insecurity
Oh, wait, more.
has precipitated multiple global crises. Energy and food insecurity, inflationary pressures, and spiraling debt.
Yep, there's that.
And these crises have compounded existing climate vulnerabilities and the scarring effects of the pandemic.
There was definitely some scarring.
And yet, despite this context,
But no amnesty, oddly enough. No amnesty.
there has been some progress in implementing the commitments that we delivered in Glasgow. Over 90% of the global economy is now covered by a net zero target.
Hey, crew.
Over 90% of the global economy is now covered by a net zero target, up from less than 30% when the UK took on the COP26 role.
1 year ago. That's significant progress. Thank you for that.
The biggest companies and the financial institutions in the world have committed to net zero. They've done so in force, with a global wall of capital creating green jobs and directing billions into the green industries of both today and tomorrow.
Interesting.
Countries and companies are making tangible sectoral progress, from zero-emission vehicles to our breakthrough agenda, and are sectoral progress, from zero-emission vehicles to our breakthrough agenda, and are accelerating the rollout of renewable energy across the world.
There's some acceleration going on, that's for sure. Thank you for that.
And the Secretary General has been clear. Our shared long-term futures do not lie in fossil fuels.
We heard that recently from a political guy who didn't realize the crowd that he was talking to might not appreciate that. And this guy got more votes than anybody ever has in the history of ever. And he said
Shared long-term futures do not lie in fossil fuels.
He said something remarkably close to that. Like remarkably close.
And I agree with him.
And that's not the guy that he's quoting.
Wholeheartedly.
Thunderous applause. Thunderous applause. Everybody in Egypt, for sure, and it's heavily attended by the Middle East. I'm sure they are absolutely thrilled to learn that there is no petroleum in the future. I'm sure that that is something that they are ecstatic about. So much so that they rose to thunderous applause for that statement.
Every major report published this year underscores the point that progress is being made.
We own the science. Every single published report says the exact same thing. Almost as if there were no dissenting voices whatsoever. But it's only that, you get to choose who gets published.
And thanks to the commitments that we garnered ahead of and at COP26, and indeed in our presidency year, emissions in 2030 are expected to be around 6 gigatons lower. That is the equivalent of 12% of today's global annual emissions.
That's a whole lot of plant food.
And with full implementation of all the commitments in place today, including NDCs and net zero targets, the reports suggest that we are heading to 1.7 degrees warming by the end of the century.
Y'all stay tuned for that long form content because it's interesting. It's coming. It's coming. I'm almost there. Got the presentation just about ready.
Not 1.5.
It's not going to be either one of them numbers.
But still, progress. So to those who remain skeptical about the multilateral process and of the COP process in particular, my message is clear. As unwieldy and sometimes as frustrating as these processes can be, the system is delivering.
There is some delivery going on, unlubricated, because there's no petroleum. You can't lube with no petroleum. And maybe a little sand, because they're in England, in Egypt, and it's sandy in Egypt.
And there are many people to thank for that, and certainly too many to name. The prime ministers and the presidents who have sensed the changing wind and indeed sought instead to harness it. The ministers to the miners who have recognized a just and sustainable future can only be delivered with a clean energy transition.
Bum, 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 bum.
The civil society organizations, youth representatives, and indigenous peoples who pushed us to consider and reconsider what was possible in Glasgow have continued to do so since. And of course, the brilliant officials, the brilliant civil servants around the world, not least in the UK's COP unit, who have helped to deliver progress. And yet, despite this progress, I fully recognize the scale of the challenge still in front of us.
There's a challenge in front of you, all right.
Just as every report shows that we are making some progress, they're equally clear that there is so much more to be done in this critical decade. Friends, we are not currently on a pathway that keeps 1.5 in reach.
Hell yeah.
And whilst I do understand that leaders around the world have
That's great news, brother. Thank you for that.
faced competing priorities this year, we must be clear. As challenging as our current moment is, inaction is myopic and can only defer climate catastrophe. We must find the ability to focus on more than one thing at once.
I'm not saying anything on that. I'm not saying anything on that.
How many more wake-up calls does the world, do world leaders actually need? A third of Pakistan underwater, the worst flooding in Nigeria in a decade. This year, the worst drought in 500 years in Europe.
And if you'd like to know why, check out my long-form content coming later this week.
In 1,000 years in the US and the worst on record in China. The cascading risks are also clear. Entire economic sectors becoming unsustainable and uninsurable, entire regions becoming unlivable, and the strain on the global movement of goods and the pressure of people to relocate because of the climate crisis becoming almost unimaginable. So this conference must be about concrete action.
Must be about some concrete action. Let's make sure we put some policies in place to enforce things today, y'all. We need that. We need that. You know, people want to use air conditioners. We got to stop that shit. And drive cars, that's got to stop too. And cows cannot be allowed to fart. That is eating a hole in the ozone layer. We've got to stop that. We need some policies in place. Oh, I wonder if they're going to put some policies in place starting today.
And I hope that when the world leaders join us today, they will explain clearly what their countries have achieved during the last year and
What you got for me, bruh? What you got for me, bruh? You got my issue?
how they will go further. It is very simply a matter of trust.
And we don't. You.
Without its constituent members delivering on their commitments and agreeing to go further, the entire system falters. I will do everything in my power to support our Egyptian friends, and the UK is here to reach ambitious outcomes across the agenda, including on mitigation, on adaptation, on loss and damage. And we know that we have reached...
Back that up. Hold up.
And the UK is here to reach ambitious outcomes across the agenda, including on mitigation, on adaptation, on loss and damage. And we know that we
So y'all gonna spend monies. That's what you just said. You just said that you gonna spend monies. You ain't got no monies, Mr. Sir. You ain't got no monies. We ain't got no monies. So we can't give you no monies. So you ain't got no monies.
have reached a point.
Unless there's some kind of global digital currency that are about to roll out. Because if there's something like that, then maybe they could do it. If they were going to maybe reset debt and make it where everybody doesn't have debt anymore, and like roll out a brand new currency would be a good idea. And if you could roll out this new currency and tell people you're either in it or you're not. And if you're not, then you can't buy or sell, because that's the thing.
Where finance makes or breaks the program of work that we had ahead of us. So whilst I would point to some of the progress shown on the $100 billion, I hear the criticisms, and I agree that more must be done.
That's not the criticism. That is not the criticism. You missed it. You got that one 180 degrees wrong, bro. You missed that completely. Like the whole wrong field. You're in the wrong side of that.
By governments and by the multilateral development banks, including on doubling adaptation finance by 2025 and establishing a post...
Double what? There's no monies. There's no money, bruh. There's none. We ain't got no money.
2025 goal. Ultimately, though, I remain hopeful. Look back to where we were before Glasgow. Look back to where we were before Paris. Indeed, as we mark the 30th anniversary, look back to where we were before Rio. With thanks to all of you, the UK's presidency ends as a demonstration that...
So for 30 years, you've been telling us that for 30 years that it was time. Like, now is the time. And you just happen to be right. There is something to be concerned about. But that's not what you're saying.
Progress is possible. It is happening. And it is continuing. Yes, we need to accelerate that progress in the remainder of the decisive decade. But I believe fundamentally that we can. We know what we need to do to keep 1.5 degrees alive. We know how to do it. And Same, you and your team have our full support. So now, friends, let's make sure we deliver. Let's make it happen. Thank you.
Very interesting, very interesting. I hope that you got a little bit of information out of this that you did not have before. Maybe a little bit of something that you want to go back and research yourself. Go back and check out Sky News. They live stream this. This is from their live stream. And you should definitely check it out. There's not a whole lot that I can say. Y'all know what the rules are. Y'all know how we've got to play by them. And I am playing by them. I'm thankful that this man is up there telling us what he's telling us today. That somebody is holding us accountable. That somebody is going to put in some policies starting now to take care of that, because we didn't need to be able to buy and sell what we want. We don't need that at all. We need to tie that into a credit score. That would be great. What if we did that? What if we tied it into a social credit score? That would be the way to go. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me. And I am praying for you every single day. Till next time, this has been Penn State. Peace.